let me begin by saying, in contrast to many NDEs where you have the tunnel, deceased loved ones.
The light.
Exactly. Some of these things that are highly characteristic of most NDEs, mine was very different. Mine was more like I teleported. And I teleported to a terrace on a tall building in what I can only describe as a post-apocalyptic landscape. Imagine New York or LA 1,000 years after the meteor hits or a nuclear blast.
What's left of it,
Exactly.
Right?
It's just dead and gray. And looming above me were these massive storm clouds. They just looked like they were ready to break loose with the mother of all storms. Now, I wasn't afraid or anything. I would say, in fact, I was depersonalized to some extent. There was no emotion, just acceptance and taking it all in. And while I was looking around, all of a sudden I was hit by this wave of nausea. And I remember bending over and I thought, I don't know if I can take this. And as soon as I said that, I heard this whispering, like a light clacking of gears off to my left. And as I looked, I saw this massive 4-story high structure. It looked like an egg standing on its end, but it was made out of lattice work, so you could see through it. And as I looked through the open lattice, I could see slight movements within. So I was able to make my way over to it. And when I looked through the lattice work, I could see these small gears that were freely suspended in space, just gently moving as if they were in idle. And sometimes they would pass through each other in a physically impossible manner. And some were more in focus, some were less in focus. But anytime I looked at one and focused on it, I could see what it meant. And I realized they each represented moments from my future, because if I saw myself, I was older. If I saw my children, they might be with children of their own who aren't here yet. So I realized this, and then I thought, I wonder if I can touch them. And I put my hand through the open lattice work, and as I did, one brushed by my hand. And when it did, I was racked with pain immediately, and I just reflexively grabbed it and pulled it out and threw it away. And when I did, all of the gears started spinning around. And it was at that point that I said, what's happening now? And a disembodied voice appeared, if you will, and stayed with me throughout the entire experience. And it said, this is the process of becoming.
How do we know that you weren't dreaming, hallucinating? Your mind wasn't making this up.
Sure. And that's an excellent question, and I totally understand it. The thing is, they estimate that maybe 5% of the world's population has had a near-death experience, which is about 60 million more people than live in the United States.
That's a lot of people.
So to have that size of a population with a highly statistically significant number of similarities, the light, the tunnel, the life review, things like this.
Right.
I think that right there points to the fact that it's more than chance. And I say chance because to me, a hallucination is something that I would think is rather random, only in that I haven't heard that, say, by taking LSD, you have the same types of hallmarks as you do with an NDE or something like this. And I haven't heard of God telling anybody to come back and be a serial killer or something that random. It usually, everybody comes back and it's a reboot to version 2.0. It's a much improved version. As I mentioned in my book, I felt very depersonalized, like I was just stripped down to the raw gem, just as a conscious being. If someone had come up to me and said, if you stay here any longer, you can't go back, I would say, go back where? To your family. What family? Nothing of this world I was attached to.
There was no connection.
Not at all. And I think the reason that I was taken that far into just being a conscious being, and the reason there was no beautiful scene around me, is because I could have been distracted by that. I was given the opportunity in reaching inside and finding these gears that would hurt to remove impediments to my spiritual development in my future. It's like stacking the deck. Now, as I live, I'm not saying I won't make wrong decisions, like I make a mistake, but I have less likelihood of making a bad decision for any reason that could be considered morally ambiguous, as we all are.